Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Jamdani Weaves. I'm delighted today to welcome to this conversation uh, Ms. Luba Chaudhary, who is somebody who has been most intrinsically associated with the Jamdani festival that we all love and know so much about. Uh, she's somebody who is currently working as the Director General of the Bengal Foundation, which has been responsible for conceptualizing and working on the festival. But apart from that, she wears another very important hat, which is that she's one of the vice presidents from South Asia for the World Crafts Council. So, no better person to tell us about the Jamdani festival and lots of other stories in today's conversation. Very warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shwetasri. Thanks very much for having me.
So let's begin at the beginning, and you can tell us a little bit about how this brilliant idea came about and how you got involved in putting the Jamdani festival together.
To be honest, the Jamdani festival was conceptualized by the National Crafts Council, the NCCB, and if I think I would like to mention the names of Ruby Ghaznavi and Chandrasekhar Shaha, who actually were instrumental in putting this together, and Hamida Hussain and several other people from the National Crafts Council. And we've been working with the National Crafts Council for quite some time now, doing projects like Lifetime Achievement Awards for artisans, for craftspersons, and then crafts melas every year. And I think Bangladesh has had, so I won't go into the whole history of Jamdani and how it came about, but through that, there were a few attempts in the past to what we might call to revive Jamdanis, in the sense that it's a very popular textile here. But as with popular things, there have been so many iterations are available in the market. Both bad and good, and of several varieties and genres and types, to the extent that it might be difficult for the uninitiated, to actually understand what the Jamdani is all about or was all about. I think that is the question that the National Crafts Council had, and they felt it was the responsibility to try and understand what the Jamdani embodies, what is it all about, and seem to have moved quite some distance from what it initially was, or the kind of weaving, the kind of motifs. I think particularly it was the motifs that everyone was concerned about, because in trying to make it contemporary, or of appeal to the contemporary public, to make it available in the market and make it appealing, I think that the process had somehow transformed the fabric into quite something else, quite unrecognizable. I think that was the concern for NCCB, if I understand correctly. So, and we started this conversation whether a festival could be organized where it would be possible to revive the original motifs and the thread count, the yarn count for Jamdani weaving. And I think the difficulty that they faced was, of course, they had the plan for it and they knew how they were going to go about it, but they needed a partner who understood their objectives and would be able to present it. I think presentation was a very important part of this exercise. And if you couldn't present it to the public, it would be a purely academic exercise in where you would know what had gone wrong, but to be able to inform the public and bring it back in its original glory and to show some of it. Clearly a large part of it is lost, but honestly, the Jamdani, one of the reasons why the Jamdani Festival of 2019 was successful, I think it was possible to bring back some of the incredible variety and beauty of Jamdani as we had known it in history.
were talking about motifs, and that's interesting because I think for many of us, it's this whole link to the past through the motifs, the stories of how the Persian motifs attained a sort of localization, where there was so much that was drawn from everyday life and from nature as was interpreted by artisans. So I think it would be very interesting for you to share a little bit interesting for our readers to hear you talk a little bit about what you discovered, what all of you discovered in the course of putting this together, about the motifs and the stories behind them, and how weavers actually weave the motifs. So a little bit about that.
So I'm no expert in Jamdanis, honestly. I mean, I've had the privilege of listening in on conversations about this, but honestly, I'm not an expert at all. But sometimes it can be interesting to be outside the conversation, a little bit on the fringes, and I mean, the takeaway could be something interesting, like for example, when we were NCCB, the National Crafts Council, had a very elaborate plan for gathering from various museums and collections motifs that were the original motifs. For example, for saris which were woven 100 years ago, 200 years ago, what might the motifs have been like? And of course, as you mentioned, I mean, there's clearly that thing about when cultures move and artisans move, and there is that acculturization and this borrowing, this give and take between. So we don't exactly see the Persian motifs as they appear, but over time, these become, interestingly, they change into, I think they acquire a local vocabulary, in the sense, what
Sure.
the flora and the fauna around them, these weavers, and these things slowly creep into the motifs. So what's very interesting was, that the weavers, they have this system of, how it's an oral tradition, how the manner in which they retain information about sets of motifs, what comes after what. So we made some interesting videos and an audioscape about the Buli, the memorized verses, which describe the patterns. And if you observe a set of weavers, you need a set of weavers to do the Jamdani. So if you observe a set of weavers going about the task, then it's the master weaver that gives out these instructions in terms of, these are rhymed verses. And interestingly, these verses, of course, these are in the colloquial language, and they talk about weeds and plants that grow around in these villages. And even these vegetables, the serrated edge of the bitter gourd, things like that, that come in these very lovely verses that they recite when they weave. I thought if it were possible it would be very interesting if anybody wanted to trace the whole, how the motifs have evolved. I mean, look at these Persian, beautiful, very shapely motifs, and kind of, how they become, say, Bengali-sized, if you like. I don't know if that's the right word, in the sense, enter these rural households and their domesticities, their everyday lives, and borrow from there. And that's what we have on our saris, on our borders, and in the so it becomes the Beli pool, all these beautiful flowers. So I think that's an interesting story, that a part of it we were able to glimpse at the Jamdani Festival through this audioscape, and by trying to understand, there's a video there where they actually show the flowers, the very ordinary flowers that grow around these village households, and how these flowers are transformed into these beautiful geometric motifs in the saris. So I think that's a lovely thing. That's something I have loved very much about this festival.
কিছুক্ষণ উস্তাদের চরণ ধরি যেই কাম ধরি এই কাম শিক্ষা করি ইয়ারিং হুল সালফার মাদানি হুল সালফার ইয়ারিং হুল সালফার পাশবালি হুল সালফার রকেট পায়ের সাথে রকেট পোনা দুবলা ফাইল হাবলা হুল।
The other interesting thing I thought was how the weavers responded to this proposition. initially when the National Crafts Council, they organized a couple of workshops and seminars for the weavers, so they would understand what the NCCB wanted. And of course, there was a lot of, they were hesitant, they were not particularly enthusiastic about going back to this very, very difficult and very onerous task of weaving this complicated and I remember that Chandrasekhar Saha, he was actually supervising all the production. I don't know how he actually did it. He would make these samplers for them, and they had to make corrections to these samplers a couple of times before they started weaving the actual saris. So in that process, it was not a process that the older weavers welcomed. In fact, interestingly, it was the younger weavers who came forward, and they thought, okay, this is a challenge and might be interesting. And the older weavers thought that it was just way too much work, and they could make several saris in the span of like 3 months, 4 months that each sari would require. So it was, I think it says a lot about the resilience of our people when, these young weavers who had no experience in their lifetimes of ever even, having seen anybody weave saris of such complex designs. But, they took it upon themselves as a challenge. And of course, there were some awards given out in the end. And most of the awards were backed by very young weavers, which I think is a great thing.
Absolutely. And I think, if anything, it tells a story of the possibility of being able to sustain the craft, because today, out of the blue, you've got this entire body of young weavers who've learned to weave some very complex old motifs, which they would have otherwise never had the opportunity to do had it not been through the vehicle of something like this. So, I mean, with that in mind, are there any sustained efforts for the future, or what do you see about the future of Jamdanis in Bangladesh?
That's the most difficult question to answer. And I don't think any of us have a proper answer to that. One thing, because not only because of the Jamdani Festival of 2019, but there have been a couple of other initiatives in the past. For example, Orono, I think, put together Jamdani Festival in 2016. And even before that, there were efforts to showcase what the actual product was like, because it had moved away considerably from its original form and design. What these things do, I think they of course help the public, I mean the customer, the buyer, the public, to recognize and understand the more traditional motifs and what makes a Jamdani, what makes it so valuable, what makes it so expensive, how much effort, how much time goes into the making and the weaving by hand of each sari. I think the exhibitions are very successful, or each of these exhibitions have been successful in making the public understand and appreciate, because of course Jamdanis are very expensive. I mean, you know that compared to other saris, these are very expensive ones. So I think it helps that, and also helps instill a sense of pride, because it gives that historical continuity of Jamdani. I think specifically that's true of this exhibition, which actually brought into perspective very, very old antique pieces, which the National Crafts Council had, collectors had very kindly loaned, or the Crafts Council had reached out to collectors and private museums and asked them to loan these pieces. So it helps that connection with 100-year, 200-year-old history of weaving. And I think that does great things to people. It gives them a sense of belonging. So this is not something which is going to go away soon, because it's been there for very long, and that thread of continuity, I think, is a wonderful thing, especially for this Jamdani Festival of 2019. I think it was appreciated more for these reasons.
So I think what I'm hearing from you, and indeed from pretty much everyone else, is that in terms of the interest for people who are interested in the craft, who are interested in the artistic aspect of it, the history, and from a very academic point of view, it was 100% a success, and nothing quite like it had been done before, and there was a great deal of appreciation. But the other aspect that, when we talk about sustaining Jamdani as an industry, so to speak, is of course the commercialization of it. And, having enough takers or having enough buyers who are willing to invest the kind of money that goes into reviving some of these older motifs where it takes months to weave a sari. And also, I mean, we were having conversations, for example, yesterday about, the fairness of wages, fair wages being paid, proper circumstances. You're looking at social security, health insurance, all of these things which are currently not part of the ecosystem. So from that point of view, did you feel that, or do you see that there is a potential in terms of the awareness to create a market enough for it to actually sustain, the production to sustain in the long run?
Well, we've had conversations around that. There was a seminar as part of this festival, and several speakers remarked upon this. I mean, what exactly is the future? And honestly, I don't think we were able to arrive at any particular conclusion. But if I may say, I mean, there were some because of this festival, and because it so brilliantly portrayed the in a sense, the continuity of designs, the intrinsic value of the Jamdani product. We were able to get the World Crafts Council to give Shonarga, the villages in Shonarga where all the weavers are concentrated on the banks of the Meghna. The village of Shonarga, which is now in Upazila, it received the status of a World Craft City. So I think that made them feel good. I mean, that was something they got in return for all the labor, all the investment. In terms of, you're absolutely right about weavers, also concerned about child labor, and also the concern about not recognizing women's involvement and input in this very, very long drawn onerous task of the pre-weaving task, which we've tried to also make a video on that. I think these need to be recognized and put in perspective. One of the things that was discussed at the seminar was perhaps you could get, the RMG sector is a huge sector in Bangladesh, a very successful sector. And there are many RMG brands here which have become local brands now, in the sense that, I mean, aside from processing ready-made garments, they've also become designer brands in the local market. So they have the expertise, they understand textiles, they understand, and they understand design. So what is happening with some very successful local brands, upmarket local brands. So what's probably missing here, I mean, I don't know if Jamdani, because it is expensive, how long Jamdani will survive as an entire, sari, which is perhaps yardage is also something we need to look at. And getting designers, especially international designers, to engage with the Jamdani fabric. And, maybe in terms of, I don't like to use the word product innovation, in a sense I don't think you could really make Jamdani any better. Not in that way, but in terms of application, how else could you use the fabric? What other ways could you use it? I think those things need to happen, which haven't really happened. I mean, we're still looking at a Jamdani sari market, right? So I remember Ruby Ghaznavi many years ago. She was doing sheer drapes with Jamdani, and I think those were beautiful. I think she was exporting those from Orono at some point. So I think things like that, when international designers engage, I think we can come up with new and interesting ways without compromising the quality, the design, the value of it. That will actually go a long way in ensuring sustainability of the product.
Thank you very much. I think that is exactly, what I would say has been my takeaway from this week, in terms of, what I've heard from everybody, that it's all very well to revel in the romance of the sari. But I think unless we think about creative ways to ensure that the Jamdani technique is adapted in ways that cater to a global audience, perhaps, and in fact, we jokingly said that what we need is an international brand ambassador for the Jamdani, which would really go a very long way, in terms of You get a popular celebrity to endorse the Jamdani, and suddenly, before you know it, it's hit the local, global
It
market.
has happened. It has happened in other cases. Now, why not with Jamdanis, right?
Right. So we were talking about Iman and the Indigo project, which ended up, immediately
Absolutely.
catapulting it on the international sphere. So maybe that's what we should look for in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just like to also bring, since we're discussing this, I mean, the how geography has played a very important role here. In the survival of Jamdanis as the craft and the weaving of it, and the villages that where we find these weavers continuing to weave Jamdanis. It's interesting that geographically that the Meghna stream and how the Shonarga villages are sheltered on its bank. And so I think that also is something, we all know how it used to be said that the waters of the Meghna were best suited.
Yes.
So
Typical Kutch.
I have a feeling, yeah. Honestly, I'm sure the waters of the Meghna are no longer what they used to be 100 years ago because of pollution and all of that. So I think that also the environmental aspects of preserving this should also be studied, which I think the Muslim project did to some extent. Yes, but how designs and let's also realize that it's if it's to survive, if it's to it's got to be living tradition. I mean, we should not expect that it will just be in the same state for years and years and years. It really will not, because Jamdani is alive. It may not be well, but it is certainly alive, and there are takers. There are people who absolutely they're paying a high price for Jamdani saris, for fabrics. I think we also have to understand that. That the designs will evolve to some extent, as they have over the past 100, 200 years. And except that we will have to channel it in a certain direction. What is missing now? It's evolving in all the wrong ways. And we need to have good examples for people to follow, good examples to inspire weavers. I think they're brilliant people. I mean, they don't even have none of these, as with all other traditional weaving artisans. I mean, there's nothing written down. In fact, I had a conversation with a lady. I think she works in Microsoft. She said that, oh my God, we probably should document these in the sense, there should be technology should also move in here. Right? That's an interesting way of looking at it also. I mean, if technology has been able to move into everything, then why not in the preservation of crafts? Right? I mean, why only preserve, why film and preserve it? But actually there is a logic in it. There is a logic in the weaving. There's a logic in the pattern making. There is a logic in the way it evolves. It would be interesting to see how technology could look into that, maybe AI, maybe a lot of other things, predict patterns, make changes. Yeah, that could be an interesting way forward also.
And then adapt them to future tastes so that, it always remains relevant, because I think that's what is most necessary for best preservation of a craft, is that it should continue to be relevant with the changing times.
Absolutely. That's my concern, whether keeping it limited to saris, whether is that not a threat to the survival of Jamdanis also? I mean, that there are a lot of designers here who are doing some interesting things with Jamdanis, but I think more needs to be done, and more needs to be done in ways that help the Jamdani to survive, instead of rendering it, making it impossible to even recognize it as Jamdani, except for some stamped on motifs, which is not very helpful, is it?
Of course.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thanks very much. That was a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Hetosri. I loved it. Thank you. Thank you.
And it's just lovely because, to hear it, I think every time I have these conversations with anybody, I regret not being in the know and not being there for the Jamdani festival. But I think, for a few brief moments, it came alive for me. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much. All the best.